Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. If you watch my channel on a regular basis, you know I am not a super strong proponent of colors when it comes to the baits that you're choosing. Meaning, oftentimes I don't think the color is the most important aspect to the bait that you're choosing to use at that given time. I think generally speaking, you have hues of colors, whether it's a bait fish type color palette, or maybe it's your green pumpkins or your blacks. Generally speaking, I feel like you have a handful of different groupings of colors, and as long as you're within that grouping, you generally are going to be okay. But having said that, it still never ceases to amaze me how most lakes out there have a favorite color. And what I mean by that is, if for example, if you go to, say, Kentucky Lake, plum is a huge color for your soft plastics. Or maybe you go to Lake Mead, where you have oxblood is a very popular color there. Or you go to the Ozarks, Table Rock, and PB&J is a very popular color. You go to a Sam Rayburn and you've got watermelon red flake is very popular. You go to Okeechobee and Junebug is a very popular color there. So it never ceases to amaze me how each individual lake seems or tends to have a favorite color. Now, with all of those lakes I just mentioned, one thing I will tell you, in my experience, those colors all work great, but I've had really good success on other colors on every one of those bodies of water. So from that standpoint, I'm not necessarily going to sit here and say you have to throw those colors when you're on those lakes, but there tends to be a fan favorite. And I've spent a lot of time trying to figure this out, guys. Is this a function of that color actually working better? And over time, you've have anglers in that area that have gone through every color in the book to find that on Rayburn, watermelon red flake is the go-to color. Or is it more of a function of a handful of guys doing well on it and kind of spreading the word that watermelon red is a very good color, which then tends to lead to everybody buying some watermelon red. And because that color works anyways, there's some success that all of those individuals had, which then again almost solidifies that color is a great color for the lake, but is it the only color or the best color for that body of water? I tend to think it's not. I'd love to know what you guys have to say. I actually feel like there's a lot of times the colors that are the fan favorites there tend to get overhyped almost because that's what everyone says you have to use. So, and it's almost as a cover up. And what I mean by that is, if I go to Florida, Okeechobee, say specifically, Junebug is very popular there. There's a lot of colors that are popular, but I tend to stay away from Junebug and have much better success throwing other colors, whether they're black and blues or whether they're, like I'm trying to think of the name of the color, like goldish hues almost, can be really good. So part of me thinks it's just one of those things, when you go online and look, everyone just says Junebug because that's what you use when you're in Florida or you go to Okeechobee. And that's just an easy thing to say versus giving them other specific color that you like that maybe isn't as popular in that area. So one, by not sharing it, you're kind of keeping it under, on the down low a little bit. But more than that, it's just an easier thing for, individuals that are looking for help when they go to a lake, just to say, okay, these are the standard colors. These colors work well. And from that standpoint, it's good. There have been very few instances in my career where I have seen one specific color that just completely outshines everything else. There's been a handful of times when I feel like that has happened. Generally, it has not. And the reality is, I don't feel like there's any specific forage or something within those bodies of water that tend to uh, be replicated by that specific color that's the hot bait. Meaning, if you go to the Ozarks, say you go to Table Rock and you throw a PB&J jig and drag that around on the bottom, I don't feel like that's necessarily what the crayfish look like. I just think it's a bait. It's a color that works well there. It works well in most places, to be honest with you. It's a great, great color for dragging around on the bottom. But it's not like the crawfish there tend to look like a PB&J jig. I've actually heard a lot of people talk about fishing oxblood on Lake Mead isn't necessarily because it's the best color to get bass to bite. It's a really good color to prevent the stripers from biting. So that allows you to get your bait down through schools of striper to the bass. So it's almost one of those things that's, maybe it's not the best bass color, but it's the best non-bass color because you don't want the stripers to eat your bait before bait can get to the bass. So it's just one of those constant cycles of what is the right color to throw. And ultimately, again, for me, it leads me back to the same thing I say routinely on this channel, which is use the baits that you are most confident in, use the ones that you feel comfortable with, and generally they will work just fine. So from that standpoint, I'd love to know from you guys, do you have specific bait colors that work on certain lakes that you've heard about that you want to share with us? And how do you feel about it? Do you think generally color is more to sell product to the anglers, or do you think it really matters in terms of getting fish to bite? Like, does it really matter if you throw a green pumpkin blue flake versus a green pumpkin red flake? Man, it's very rare when I see anything like that happen, but I'd love to know what you guys have to say. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate all of you out there. Stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow.